Chapter 5. The Ruthless Alpha Surrogate. Astrid's POV. At that moment, the fog in my head finally cleared. Alpha Jackson. He was the alpha of the Crimson Moon Pack. Just the name was enough to send shivers down any wolf's spine. The Crimson Moon Pack was one of the largest on the continent because Alpha Jackson had carved his way through others, conquering neighboring packs and claiming them as his own. He had a ruthless reputation, bloodthirsty, relentless, and utterly devoid of mercy. Even my former pack steered clear of any dealings with the Crimson Moon Pack, choosing instead to send offerings, desperate to appease him and stave off an attack. And now, I'd been sold to be his breeder. How much had they drugged my meal for me to wind up in a mess like this? All I wanted was to find my dad, yet each step I took, I just fell into deeper trouble. I stumbled upright, searching the face of the stranger who'd told me he bought me. A surrogate? That word, surrogate, it only meant one thing: a vessel for someone else's child. Did that mean sex? With a man infamous for tearing apart lives, no less? Fighting the sudden wave of nausea, I drew the stranger's jacket tighter around me, holding back tears. Please, I never volunteered for this. Let me go, I'm begging you. His brow furrowed, irritation flashing through those sharp eyes. What are you talking about? Maybe if I explained everything, told him how little I knew, how I'd been dragged here against my will, maybe, just maybe, he'd let me go. I clung tighter. I think I was kidnapped. He quickly shrugged me off, that frown deepening. That doesn't matter. You've been purchased. You'll do as you're told. Purchased? Like a trinket on a shelf. Everything about him radiated dominance. He wasn't just dangerous, he was powerful. Not that it mattered, powerful or not, I was completely powerless. My so-called royal blood hadn't given me any strength. I couldn't fight back. I had no clue where I even was. Helpless, completely out of options, I fell back on the one thing I knew: submission. After everything I'd endured in the Moonshadow Pack, I could fall back into that pattern with awful ease. I folded my shaking hands and cried openly, desperate for any shred of mercy. Please, I can't. I can't be a surrogate. Please, have some mercy. He remained unmoved. Panic clawed at me as I searched frantically for something, anything to bargain with. I'll pay you back. However much you paid for me, I'll find a way, I swear. A flicker of curiosity crossed his face as his eyebrows drew together. And what could you possibly offer? My hand flew to my chest, and I nearly sobbed in relief. The necklace, Alpha Finn's birthday gift, meant to celebrate a lie, was still there. Maybe it was my only hope. I unclasped the delicate chain from my neck, my voice trembling. Take this. Please, it's all I have. He held the necklace between two fingers, amusement twisting his mouth into a patronizing smirk. This? Are you serious? Embarrassment and panic scorched through me. Was it really worth so little that it couldn't buy my freedom? How much had those men gotten for me? How long had I been out? What do you mean? Without a second thought, he tossed the necklace onto the bed. That's fake gold. A gasp tore from my lips. No, it can't be. God, I was so naive, thinking the Blackwoods would ever do anything honestly. They only wanted me for my connection to the Alpha King, not because I was worth anything to them. I'd always been expendable. Amused, he crossed his arms. If it were real gold, do you honestly think the slavers would have left it on you? My cheeks burned with humiliation, all hope snuffed out. Anyone cruel enough to traffic me wouldn't hesitate to strip me of anything valuable. Valuables. Heart sinking, I patted my pockets in desperation. The wallet I'd snatched from Xavier's car, gone. You said the slavers sold me to you? The words felt heavy in my mouth. Slavers. Goosebumps crawled over my skin. Just another nightmare lurking out there alongside the rogues. They'd banded together after their banishment, jaded, cold, hungry for any scrap. Selling wolves, humans, any supernatural creature you could name, peddling information, taking bounties, getting their hands dirty for a price. I'd been so careless. If he knew who he bought me from, he had to understand that none of this was voluntary for me. Desperate, I clutched his shirt tighter. You have to know they're slavers. You know I didn't sign up for this. Why are you doing this? He looked like he was about to answer when suddenly the air sizzled raw and electric. My body went rigid, every instinct screaming danger. You should be grateful, Pat. His voice was ice, brutal and disdainful. I knew without a doubt this was Alpha Jackson, the one who'd bought me, the one whose name was always whispered with fear. He didn't look like a monster, but somehow that made it even worse. The way his muscles pressed, taut and effortless, against his clothes, the sharpness of his jawline, the elegant symmetry of his face, those cool gray eyes. Get a grip, Astrid. Even monsters can be beautiful. But I couldn't deny the jolt in my chest, the unbearable flutter in my stomach. I hated that my body reacted at all. The man in the room fell instantly into a deep bow, his dominant presence evaporating. Alpha Jackson. Jackson barely spared him a glance, already dismissing him with a lazy wave. Leave us, Caleb. Caleb. Beta. Of course, the force of dominance made sense now. He straightened, bowed a second time, and left without another word, leaving me alone with Jackson. My panic bubbled right up to my throat. The silence between us broke only when a sheet of paper fluttered into my face. It was a wanted poster. My face tagged wanted. Wanted. Anger and dread twisted together like a knot. There wasn't a doubt who would chase me this hard. Alpha Jackson didn't need to say much, but when he did, it slammed my suspicions home. The Moonshadow Pacts listed you as a fugitive, offering $500,000 for your safe return. $500,000. That was how badly they needed me, how determined they were to keep Xavier's precious plans intact. Jackson studied me, cold and unreadable as stone. If I let you go, the slavers will only return you to them. Back to them. That worthless existence. Back to Lyra's cruelty. Her little kingdom of tormentors would have a field day. Trying to get away had doomed me forever. If I ever returned, they'd never take their eyes off me again. I'd truly be trapped. Jackson moved closer, tipping my chin with his hand, sending hot and cold terror rippling over my nerves. I intend to keep you pet. Whatever your past, whatever you want, none of it concerns me. I care only what you can provide, a child. He dropped my chin, turning away as though nothing about me interested him at all. My freedom didn't matter, only what I could give him. Get ready. We leave in an hour. My voice shook when I finally found it. If I go through with this, if I have the child, will you let me go? Chapter 6. The Price Tag. Alpha Jackson's POV. I looked back at the woman who would soon be my surrogate, The audacity. How dare she question me? She needed to understand her place. Leaning in, I gripped her chin roughly, surprising a gasp out of her. I'd been patient so far, maybe even considerate, but I was alpha. I don't tolerate challenges from anyone. No one questions me, pet, I breathed into her ear, feeling the tension ripple through her. My hand slipped her neck, pressing just enough to make my point, but not enough to harm. A warning, plain and simple. Especially not you. Astrid's pale green eyes grew wide with fear. Part of me wanted to erase that look, but I forced myself to ignore it. This fear, this distance, was safer for both of us. I didn't need this arrangement to become anything more than what it was, necessary. As I let her go, anger twisted my insides, at her, myself, the whole damn situation. Alpha, the car is ready, my beta, Caleb, announced, bowing as I moved past him toward the car. Couldn't you have found someone more submissive? My words came out rough, nearly a growl, my wolf agitated since the moment I'd seen Astrid. Caleb straightened, his tone apologetic. She was the best option available, and you know what she said. I cut him off, my hand wrapping around his throat as my wolf pressed for control, the memory of why we were here and who had sent us, stoking the fire inside me. I know exactly what she said, I snarled. How could I forget when everything now hinged on this? I released him, and Caleb dropped even lower, waiting for the consequences. He knew as well as I did, I never forgave a misstep. But this wasn't on him today. The fault was mine. I exhaled slowly. I'll spare your life because you're my beta. You realize how much I'm risking here. Get her ready for the journey. If she isn't up to it, get rid of her and find me another surrogate. Caleb looked up, shaken by my words. He knew exactly what that meant. If she became a problem, he'd have to handle it quickly, or we'd need a witch to start again. Caleb bowed one last time. Yes, Alpha. Some call me ruthless. They're not wrong, but I'd never deny it, especially not when the stakes were this high. Slumping into the car, I waited as my phone rang. Astrid's POV. I rubbed my neck. The ache from Alpha Jackson's grip a stark reminder. Every rumor about him, true. Earlier, when he laid out his offer, I'd hoped there was a shred of reason in him. That maybe I could survive this. Just get through it until I'd given him a child and then go free. Now, I wasn't so sure. He refused to tell me if he'd let me leave at the end. What if I gave him everything and he still kept me trapped? What then? The door swung open and Beta Caleb strode in, face still flushed. He shot me a glare. Why aren't you dressed? He didn't wait for me to answer. Grabbing a pile of clothes off the dresser, he tossed them toward me. Put these on. If I obeyed, the goddess only knew what they'd expect next, maybe more coercion, more ultimatums. I couldn't give in so easily. My hands and legs weren't bound, and even if I stood no chance in a fight, I wasn't going down without one. No, I said, my voice sharper, stronger than I expected. Caleb paused at my defiance, brows furrowing as he sized me up. Wrapping the blanket tighter around my ruined clothes, I squared my shoulders. You and I both know I was taken here against my will. How can you expect me to cooperate without any promise? Before I could finish, he grabbed my arm, gripped tight and unyielding. Look, girl, you've got nothing. No money. No home. You're alone, he snarled, rage flashing across his features. We could dump you and you've nowhere to go. So stop being so damn stubborn. Keep resisting, and you'll die. His words rooted me in fear. Was that what he planned, and why did he care if I stopped fighting back? When he noticed my silence, his grip slackened a little. Not quite merciful, but different. He let out a low breath. Alpha Jackson's patience is thin. I remembered how quickly Jackson shifted, gentle, then violent in a blink. If you want to keep that pretty neck of yours, do as you're told. Caleb's words sounded more like stating a fact than a threat. My resolve crumbled, exhaustion seeping into my bones. All I want to know is, when this is over, when I've done what he wants, will he let me go? I have a life. That was why I'd run from the Moonshadow pack, to finally breathe, to finally find my father. All I wanted was to know my future. That isn't too much, is it? Caleb let go of me. You don't have to worry about that. He will, and he'll pay you $50,000 for your trouble. I stared at him. Surely I'd heard wrong. What? He didn't blink, didn't flinch. I mean it. When it's done, the money's yours. All you have to do is keep your mouth shut, do what you're told, and make him a father. Shame burned across my cheeks. It felt like selling myself, but at least I'd actually get paid. They could have forced this, taken everything, and given nothing. With that money, I could get to the city and search for my father, finally have a chance. Caleb eyed me, cold and calculating. You're beautiful enough. Just don't ruin it. I felt so exposed, appraised and dismissed like a commodity. But at least I'd walk away with something, if any of this was true. I turned away, already feeling hollow. Fine. Please, give me a moment to change. He paused at the door, then looked over his shoulder. I know this isn't the life you wanted. Maybe it won't be as easy as you think, but you're the best option we've got. His words surprised me, softer than I'd expected. Had something shifted in him? Why do you think that? I asked, curiosity slipping through my despair. He shrugged. You're on the run, and the Crimson Pack's a dangerous crowd. Stay with our Alpha, and no one dares touch you. For the first time, I considered that. Jackson had alluded to it earlier, but I hadn't listened. Maybe I should have. Thank you, I whispered. The softness dropped from his face. Get dressed. 2 minutes. He left, and I washed my face, rinsed out my mouth, then changed quickly. As I pulled on the oversized shirt, my thoughts spun. If those bounty hunters caught me or the Moonshadow Pack did, I'd be back to life as a helpless Omega. I'd refuse, and if Alpha Jackson wanted to use me, then I would use him just the same. Ready or not, I headed for the car. I slid into the back seat next to Alpha Jackson. The moment the door closed, the car pulled out. I glanced around, trying to orient myself. The windows were pitch black, and a divider separated us from the front. No sense of direction, no escape. Suddenly, Jackson pinned me back against the door, arms boxing me in. His eyes dangerously dark. Why is the Moonshadow Pack after you? What's your connection to Xavier? Chapter 7, Turning Up the Heat. Astrid's POV. I had completely lost my mind. How did I know? Because as Alpha Jackson looked down at me, those stormy gray eyes full of impatience, dark hair subtly falling over his brow, the only thought filling my head was how unbelievably handsome he looked. His scent overwhelmed me, intoxicating and addictive. He smelled of cedar and sweet wine, just pure, undeniable masculinity. I could lose myself in his gaze, those eyes, that hair. An almost desperate urge to touch him crawled through me, needing to know if those strands were as soft as they appeared. A shiver ran up my body. Suddenly, Alpha Jackson growled, his eyes turning darker, arms tightening so abruptly around me I let out a sharp gasp of pain. "When I speak to you, I expect an answer," he demanded, voice harsh and low. My lips trembled apart. What could I possibly say? Where was I supposed to start? Telling him the truth that I'd left the pack house, running from secrets I didn't want anyone drudging up, that I was royalty, hunted for what I simply was, seemed unimaginable. The last thing I needed was for him to find out my lineage and try to use me as Xavier had planned with his father. No, I couldn't confess the whole story. Yet faking it? I had the strangest feeling he'd catch me lying anyway. I gathered myself, refusing to look away from those cutting gray eyes. I'm Xavier's mate. I saw some flicker light up behind Alpha Jackson's gaze. I was his mate, I corrected quietly. He rejected me as soon as he found out, said I was an Omega, not worthy of him. Only speaking about it made my heart ache all over. Xavier had tossed me aside so easily, like I was nothing. He called me worthless, when the reality was the complete opposite. I was the Alpha King's daughter, while he hadn't even inherited his own pack. Technically, I outranked him before I even spoke a word. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes, but I didn't look away from Alpha Jackson. He only searched my face, completely silent. Before we even realized we were mates, he'd torment and humiliate me every chance he got. I finally snapped and ran away. Despite everything that had unfolded, even this precarious mess and getting myself kidnapped, I still couldn't find it in myself to regret leaving. Although if I could do one thing differently, it'd be to pick a better place to spend the night, or keep going a little further into the next town. Alpha Jackson shot me a dubious glance, brow lifting as if silently asking if a ransom hung over my head just for that. An involuntary grin stole across my lips. I might have pushed Xavier's favorite car into a lake. Also may have wrecked his girlfriend's ride, too. His eyes widened momentarily, a gleam of shock flickering across his features. And just for a moment, I thrilled at being able to surprise him. The astonishment faded just as quickly, replaced by clear skepticism. So, was he the one who set the bounty on you? What's his role in the pack anyway, to be able to do that? Now it was my turn to be startled, forcing myself not to give it away. How did he not know who Xavier was? Didn't all alphas keep track of each other? Memory struck me. Alpha Finn always worked so hard never to catch Alpha Jackson's notice. Maybe he'd hidden Xavier's identity, saving this secret to use at the right moment against my father, the Alpha King. Think fast. He's got close ties to the Alpha and the heir of the Moonshadow Pack, I replied, voice steady. Jackson's eyes narrowed sharply, his grip tightening just a hair, bordering on menacing. But the unexpected rush of fear weaving with an unmistakable spark of arousal startled me. Jackson snarled, baring teeth as warning. Don't lie to me, or you'll regret it. Swallowing hard, I met his gaze dead on, not willing to seem guilty or nervous. I'm not lying. You can ask anyone at Moonshadow. Every word's true. Technically, it wasn't even a lie. Xavier was both heir and the Alpha son, basically both their confidant and successor. He seemed to buy it. His frown deepened, cascading lines shadowing his forehead. If all of that's factual, then your ex-mate is a complete fool, he muttered. His words caught me by surprise. I didn't expect that sympathy. Caring even in the smallest way didn't fit the cold, steely alpha I'd imagined him to be. He inhaled deeply, so close the warmth of his breath prickled across my skin and made goosebumps come alive on my arms. You don't smell like an omega. There's alpha in you, he murmured, voice laced with intrigue and something darkly hungry. Suddenly, my brain dissolved into static. Was it getting hotter in the car, or was it just his touch? I don't. His hand slid from my shoulders, one settling at my waist and the other pausing just shy of my chest, dangerously near. He leaned in close, lips nearly grazing the spot where neck met shoulder. You smell like dominance, he whispered. The rough timbre of his voice shot down my spine, heat and need fluttering in my core. I fought to restrain the moan on my tongue. What was he doing to me? Once more, his head dipped, his breath fire against my collarbone. A breathy gasp escaped me before I could stop it. With a guttural sound, Jackson hauled me further beneath him, pressing me back into the seat so swiftly my head spun. Within seconds, he was between my legs. I could feel the hard line of his knee pressing against me. Another helpless moan slipped free, my self-control unraveling by the second. His fingers threaded into my hair, gripping just tightly enough to awaken something dangerously hot in me. Then, he pressed a lingering kiss right at my pulse point, making me tremble. His voice found my ear, low and rough. You smell like berries and wildflowers. No one had ever spoken to me like that. With a voice so thick with unfiltered honesty and sensuality, it broke through every barrier I'd ever known. My heart melted, nerves blazing, willpower rapidly deteriorating. I blinked open my eyes. When had I closed them? And met his gaze. He watched me, desire plain and undaunted. Alpha Jackson. I meant his name as a warning or plea, but it tore out in a shaky whisper instead. A look of wicked satisfaction crossed his face, mixed with burning pride. You're so wound up from my touch, Astrid. If I reached for you, would I find you desperate? A shudder traveled right through me just from hearing my own name between his teeth. Goddess. Was I really about to lose my virginity in the back seat of a car to this relentless alpha for $50,000, no less? And the worst part, I couldn't even bring myself to care. Hell, I actually wanted this, wanted him. Alpha Jackson shifted slightly, impatience blazing. Apparently, my silence wasn't enough of an answer. His hand traced downwards. Skimming over my stomach, down to my lower belly, gradually hiking my shirt until his fingers grazed the waistband of my leggings. That was when my hand clamped urgently over his, halting any further descent. My breath stuttered. My inner thighs quivered at just the thought. We're just getting to know each other. He didn't give me a chance to finish. He pried my hands away, danger gleaming in his eyes. No one says no to me, little one. He pressed his hand between my legs, right over the fabric, eliciting a sharp gasp as I heard, unmistakably, just how wet I was. He smirked, dark and glorious, as the car finally shuddered to a halt. He hovered above me for a moment, eyes locked on mine, the thick, dizzying scent of lust swirling between us. Abruptly, he withdrew, straightening in a singular, controlled motion. The car door swung open. Almost without a backward glance, he shoved me out. Beta Caleb caught me before I hit the ground. Jackson didn't bother to look back. Take her to the pack doctor. Check her ovulation. Put her on the list. The list? What list? Chapter 8, The Witch's Curse. Astrid's POV. When I arrived at the Crimson Moon Pack Hospital with Beta Nathan, confusion gnawed at me. What exactly had Alpha Jackson meant by the list, and why did he want me to see a doctor? The wound on my cheek was already healed. Even if it took me longer than a regular wolf, my body could still mend itself. At least the doctor seemed pleasant. "I'm Rachel," she greeted, her voice gentle. "During your time here as a surrogate, I'll be your guide and confidant." I studied her serene face, cropped blonde hair, and almost angelic blue eyes, my supposed confidant. But she was Crimson Moon, and that made her one of Alpha Jackson's people. In this place, trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Rachel turned to Beta Nathan, making him stand a little taller beneath her gaze. "Wait outside the clinic and give this to the Alpha," she said, handing him an envelope. Nathan took the envelope and fixed me with a pointed look, his silent warning clear before he retreated down the hall. I faced Rachel again, uncertainty gnawing in my stomach. Had she sent Nathan away just to make me feel at ease? "When you said confidant, did you mean it?" Rachel's smile softened into something almost maternal as she looped her arm through mine. "Of course. I intend to help you however I can." She guided me into an exam room, talking softly. "To carry a child, your mind needs to be at peace. Your body rested and focused on your goal." Right, as if I needed reminding. This entire ordeal turned me into Alpha Jackson's potential surrogate, expected to give him an heir. In here, a bed and rows of sterile equipment instantly stirred my nerves. At least Rachel let me undress behind a privacy screen, though she lingered nearby, her words carrying through the thin divider. Was she trying to make me more comfortable, or making sure I couldn't run? Stepping out in an impossibly thin hospital gown, I felt helplessly exposed, vulnerable inside and out. "Rachel, I've never done this before." My voice caught, smaller than I'd meant it. She misunderstood. Laughing kindly, she shook her head. "You'll be all right. Getting pregnant isn't so daunting. Besides, it's a lot easier when the experience itself is good." My face flamed hot. Was it just me, or was she always this honest? Then again, that brief car ride with Alpha Jackson flashed back, his hands expertly traveling over my skin. Just the thought twisted my insides, his lips like phantom heat along my neck. I forced myself to look away. "Snap out of it, Astrid." Rachel was watching, waiting for a reaction. I don't even know what to say to that." "That's fine," Rachel said, smiling as if I'd passed some secret test. "Just relax and I'll handle the rest." She led me to the bed. A nurse, Matilda, joined, and then the procedure began. And when I say began, I mean they were thorough. Blood draws, swabs, cold metal instruments, breast checks. I felt like I'd just been through 10 different kinds of exams. Rachel explained each step before she moved forward, asking if I needed breaks, though I refused. I just wanted it over with quickly. When it finally ended, she sat me down and asked a series of odd questions. She confirmed I was a virgin and noted my last period. I re-emerged in my clothes, tension thick inside me, as Rachel shared the verdict. "You're fertile, Astrid. Your ovulation will fall next week, after Freya, before Kiara." Some of the anxiety ebbed. In a single morning, I'd gotten more sex education than a lifetime in the Moonshadow Pack. Ovulation meant those were my fertile days. Those were the only days Alpha Jackson would come to me. "So I won't have to be with Alpha Jackson until next week?" Rachel nodded, her expression gentle. At least that gave me time to prepare to lie with a man who was, for all practical purposes, a stranger. It would be strictly business, money and safety for me, and air for him. A fresh wave of doubt crashed over me. Who are Freya and Kiara? Rachel's brows lifted. You don't know? Like you, they're Alpha Jackson's surrogates. The list. Suddenly, it made sense. How arrogant could he be? Did he think one man deserved a harem of women just for breeding? But a darker curiosity took root. If he already has surrogates, then why does he need me? Rachel didn't hesitate. He might have surrogates, but he has no children. I blinked. Was this the catch? Everything about this arrangement felt strange. Alpha Jackson paying $50,000, using surrogates instead of a mate. Did this mean he was infertile? Would I ever get out of here? Something in my eyes must have shown my fear, because Rachel patted my hand, her grip surprisingly firm. I assure you, he's healthy. He can father a child, but so far the goddess hasn't granted one. Her reassurance offered no real comfort. If even the goddess refused him, what chance did I have to succeed or to ever walk away from here? Alpha Jackson's POV. I hurled the report aside and swept everything from my desk. Teeth clenched, jaw tight in stifled frustration. None of my surrogates were pregnant, not even with IVF, and time was running out. It all traced back to one ancient, vindictive curse. Generations ago, my great-grandfather spurned a witch, got her pregnant, refused her child. On her deathbed, she cursed him and every one of his descendants. If we didn't bear a child before 30, we'd die. The longer the years passed, the deeper the curse seemed to embed itself. My father died on the stroke of his 30th birthday, gone before I could even remember his voice. My mother raised me. It made her cold and steel-hearted. She warned me the council that ruled in our family's absence would have devoured me if I showed weakness. Always be ruthless, son. Take every precaution. A part of me always doubted the legend's power. How could any alpha, power in his blood, authority in his bones, drop dead on the whim of a witch from centuries ago? Until the year I turned 28. That was the year the symptoms began. Sudden blindness, waves of fatigue crashing over me even after sleep and food. They'd strike and vanish, unpredictable and cruel. As the months slipped by, I was nearly 29 and facing extinction. No one beyond my closest advisors knew about the curse. If word escaped, enemies would tear me apart from the inside out. My surrogates were well treated and monitored, but no one conceived. No babies, no hope, just looming dread and silence. Desperate, I hunted down the witch's last direct descendant. This foul tangle wouldn't end my bloodline, not if I could force it to break. I pressed my claws to her throat, voice dangerous. Reverse the curse, witch, or I'll end you here and now. She stood her ground, defiant. Torture me all you like. I have no power left. My ability isn't as strong as my ancestors. Each generation gets weaker. You can't fool me, I snapped. One curse, one witch. It must be possible. My gift isn't for undoing spells. I have the sight, prophecy, not curses. She was useless then. I tossed her at Caleb's feet. Kill her. Didn't matter if she cursed me further. I was dying anyway. But as I turned to go, her panic broke through. Wait, she screamed. I paused. Her voice became urgent. If there is a chance for you to meet the woman destined to bear your child, I'll find it. Give me a moment. I doubted her, but waited anyway. In a trance, her body rigid, she whispered with a guttural, hollow voice. Her face grew ghostly, her eyes rolled bone white. You will meet her exactly 1 week from now. Slave traders around Moonshadow lands look for her with the scent of an alpha, she intoned. I nearly laughed. Was that all? Be precise. That's useless. She will have the scent of an alpha, the witch said flatly. When Caleb found Astrid, I understood. She might indeed be my last chance. Now, still shaking with anger, I turned to Caleb. When does Astrid ovulate? Next week, Alpha. A week left. I could wait a week for my final opportunity. I'd survived this long. I wouldn't lose everything, wouldn't be lost to a curse meant for cowards. Caleb fidgeted, eyes darting away. Should I call in Freya? This was her week, her ovulation, her chance. Call her in, I snapped, exhaustion bleeding into my voice. Deep down, I was so damn tired. Chapter 9, The Unexpected Visitor. Astrid's POV. Honestly, being a surrogate was unexpectedly cool. Who would have thought? Somehow, selling my body for money felt less degrading than being a powerless Omega. I'd been given a huge room on the top floor with windows overlooking the world below. No one disturbed me, and Alpha Jackson, thank the stars, never came near to force himself on me or even so much as check in. It almost felt as though they'd forgotten I existed, except for the ever-present servants who attended to my every whim. Yes, servants. People who fetched whatever I asked for, cleaned my room, styled my hair, even though I barely left it, and helped me dress. They tried to bathe me, but I firmly drew the line there. I was, after all, still an adult, not a helpless child. Physical exertion? Out of the question. To protect the baby, I always had a maid nearby in case I needed to do anything remotely strenuous. For the first time in ages, I slept well. I ate far too much. I had my fill of rest and fluff. And then I grew bored. I know what you're thinking. Shouldn't I have been delighted after years of suffering? But sitting still was a slow suffocation. For so long, my body was so accustomed to struggle that leisure felt unnatural. So I started roaming the house, soaking in details, trying to satisfy my need to do. That's how I ended up in the library for the first time. The librarian bowed when she saw me, making me jump. Good day, my lady. How may I be of service? My lady? Was she really talking to me? Awkward heat swept across my cheeks. No, really. I'll find my way around. But she trailed after me anyway. As a surrogate, it's best if you don't exert yourself. I paused, turning to her in surprise. How did you know I'm a surrogate? She hesitated, embarrassed. Only surrogates wear blue silk around here. I looked down at the ocean blue dress. Suddenly, I realized every single garment I owned was some shade of blue, from palest near white ice to navy so deep it barely showed color in the dark. Apparently, my clothes screamed what I was. Right, I tucked my hair behind my ear. I'm not planning on running a marathon, don't worry. I just want to read something. My not-so-subtle request to be left alone fell short. Allow me to help you find your books. What could I do but surrender and let her tag along? She handed me the stories I picked out, and at last I dismissed her and dove into my escape, books. I kept coming back often enough that the different librarians started to recognize me. On my second day, I spotted a military journal and thought, what better opportunity than now to dig up information on the elusive Alpha King? I might need every scrap of knowledge possible when the time came to track him down. It paid to be prepared. Days passed, maybe a week. One afternoon, as I was deep in a fascinating history book about my father, Wendy, the librarian, approached me. I'm afraid we must close the library. I looked up, disheartened. Can I at least borrow this one? Wendy offered me an apologetic smile. It's too heavy to carry to your room on your own. You might strain yourself without a maid present. She was right. I'd likely insist on dragging it up the stairs myself. The anxieties of this place were almost farcical. If I got pregnant, they'd probably wheel me everywhere on a bloody settee. Fighting back frustration, I glanced back at her. But I'm so bored. Reading is the only thing that makes me feel human. Tears threatened as I pressed on. Alpha Jackson hasn't even. My voice dropped off. I didn't know why I even felt guilty, treated like some sort of royal guest, when I'd done nothing to earn this. Wendy's expression softened. It's out of my hands. She paused. But I could lend you the key to lock up on your own. Just return it tomorrow. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. Really, thank you. I nearly launched myself into her arms. After she left, it hit me, for the first time, I was entirely alone in Crimson Moon's mansion. My first real chance to try for an escape. But what about Wendy? I didn't want her punished. Still, Dad was out there somewhere after all. Heart pounding, I glanced at the locked library door. I knew my guard was stationed right outside. I'd have to try the window. I crept around, sizing up the windows for something, anything I could use to climb out. I had one leg up, ready to swing myself out when quick footsteps echoed behind me. I froze, completely caught. Turning slowly, I practically swallowed my heart when I saw who it was. Xavier? My former mate flashed a blinding smile. There is no need for the window. I'm here to take you home. Xavier's POV. This is all your fault. You're nothing but a disgrace. The second Astrid vanished, all hell broke loose, and I bore every ounce of the blame. Father, how was I supposed to know she'd run? I protested. But he was inconsolable. If you treated her better, none of this would have happened. He cared about the Omega as much as I did, but his attention was consumed by what she meant, our one slim chance at the throne. She's our way out from under Alpha Jackson's boot and your ticket to the throne, you blind idiot. Over the years, Alpha Jackson's hard-won rise had left my father feeling humiliated and small, something he'd never forgive. Enough was enough. I'll find her, and I'll bring her back, I swore to him. But honestly, even if he'd forbidden it, I would have gone after her. My wolf was restless, desperate. I couldn't bear Lyra's touch, let alone kiss her. Every night since Astrid left, sleep eluded me without her Omega scent curling in my nose. It was driving me insane. The search led me to a dingy little hotel where Astrid's scent abruptly went cold, the telltale signs someone had masked it. Only one kind of person could do that. Bounty hunters. I stomped up to the bar, shoving a photo beneath the nose of the grim-faced man at the center table. Seen her? He didn't even so much as glance, taking a slow pull of his beer. His friends circled like predators. I slapped down a thick roll of cash. Maybe now? He grinned, showing yellow, ruined teeth. Double it and we'll see. Annoyed, I complied. Money disappeared quick, lines of greed lighting up all their faces. Crimson Moon bought her off. You try taking her back, you'll just end up dead. He finally sneered. Crimson Moon. Figures. A low growl built in my throat, and, for a moment, the bounty hunter blanched. She's not for sale. She's mine, and I'll get her back. There was nothing left except prepping and bribing and waiting. Truthfully, snaking into Crimson Moon's territory almost killed me, but my inside contact reported Astrid visited the library often. I lurked in the shadows, looking for my opening, and now, here we were. She stood before me, the same and yet different. Her hair hung sleek, rich curls spilling over her shoulders. The soft glow on her face, even in this faint light, she was stunning. Her green eyes, pale as green jade. Perfect. Just as I remembered, and everything I couldn't forget. But she kept a safe distance. Astrid didn't run into my arms. I'm not going back with you, she said, voice aching with finality. I tried not to show my jolt. You'd rather stay locked up with a murderer and an animal than come home? Fury sparked in her eyes, anger I'd never seen before. Moonshadow was never home. You and everyone else made sure I knew it. And, excuse me, but aren't you as monstrous? The challenge in her voice was no longer guilt-tripped Omega. It was pure defiance, straight-backed and proud. You abandoned our bond the moment you discovered I was your mate. My patience ran thin. Desperation warred with anguish. I forced my voice low. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please, give me one more chance. She wavered, turning her gaze away. No, I can't trust you, not anymore. That was it. My temper snapped. Fine. If that's your answer, then you leave me no choice. My grip tightened as I grabbed her arm, yanking her toward me while she struggled to get free. Let me go, Xavier. I'm not yours to take, she gasped, the fear bursting through. You've clearly been brainwashed, I grated. No, I haven't. She shoved me. Just leave me. I pulled her closer, her gasp tight with pain. A quiet, deadly voice cut through the tension. Am I interrupting something? Alpha Jackson stood in the doorway, eyes fixed on the two of us. Chapter 10, My Property. Alpha Jackson's POV. I watched shock flicker over their faces as they registered my presence in the library. The man who had his arms around Astrid loosened his hold, out of shock probably, but that was all the opening she needed. Astrid pulled away and darted behind me, clutching at my shirt. Even at this distance, I could pick up traces of his scent on her. A deep surge of anger knotted inside me. How dare another man put his hands on something, or rather, someone that belongs to me? If the librarian hadn't told me, through the pack link, that she'd left Astrid alone in the library, I would have never known about this. And now there was a rage brewing inside me that I didn't recognize, something primal and ferocious. I didn't know Astrid well, not truly, but I was certain saying I was bothered was a gross understatement. Possessive didn't begin to cover it. She was mine. I'd made the bargain fairly and bought her outright, and she'd agreed every step of the way. The man standing across from me looked and smelled hauntingly familiar in the way he stared at Astrid. It didn't take a genius to piece it together. He had to be her former mate. The idiot who let someone like Astrid go. I made a mental note to myself. I'd never repeat that mistake. I glanced at my men, already stationed in the library. "Seize him," I commanded. The intruder spoke then. His attempt at bravado was transparent, the anxiety leaking through despite the swagger in his voice. "I wouldn't do that if I were you. I'm the heir to the Moonshadow pack." No wonder he smelled so familiar, just like his father. Of course, Astrid had lied about this in the car, just as I suspected she might. She'd pay for that later. I arched a brow, utterly unmoved. And why exactly should that concern me? He seemed unsettled by my indifference, staring as if waiting for awe or fear. No matter how powerful you are, Alpha Jackson, not even you can kill the heir of an alpha without provocation. Was he honestly that naive? Now I understood how he had the nerve to waltz onto my land. Heads would roll before today was over. "You trespassed on my property," I said, irritation mounting. "And you put your hands on what belongs to me without permission. I'm well within my rights to deal with you as I see fit." "You call her your property," he sputtered, confusion quickly shifting into alarm as he realized exactly what I meant. He surged forward, straining to reach Astrid over my shoulder. "Astrid, tell him I'm your mate." Astrid's grip tightened on the back of my shirt. She pressed close, refusing to say a word to him. I growled, keeping myself in front of her. "Speak to me, boy, not her." He wheeled on me, bristling with irritation at being ignored. "Call me boy again, and I swear I—" "You'll what?" I cut in sharply. "What did you just threaten to do to me?" Goddess help him. He was even dumber than I'd thought. Stepping closer, I made sure the message and my displeasure was crystal clear but stayed steady so Astrid wouldn't lose her grip. "You're weak, pathetic, just like your father. Even if I ended you here and now, your family wouldn't be able to change a damn thing." His fear was acrid on the air, though his voice shook with anger. "You'll start a war." I crossed my arms. "And I'll end it. I'd annex the Moonshadow pack into mine and your bloodline would disappear from history." He snapped out a growl, his eyes darkening, rage swirling in them. "Only over my dead body." I smiled, a razor-sharp grin. "As you like. Caleb, lock him up." "Yes, Alpha." Caleb lurched forward. The boy cast a final glance, not at me, but at Astrid, maybe pleading, maybe promising. "I'll come back for you, Astrid. For my mate." Then he bolted. There was only one exit from the library, blocked by me and my men, so I almost felt sorry for him as he crashed through the largest window mid-transformation. Glass rained as he shifted in the air and dove out. "Go after him. Don't come back without him dead or alive," I ordered. Caleb and a handful tore after him through the ruined window, shifting as they leapt. The rest split off, circling the building through the doors. That left the library echoingly empty, save for Astrid and me. She leaned into my back as though her legs couldn't hold her anymore, drained and trembling, but my frustration with her hadn't faded. Not yet. "You lied to me." Astrid's POV. Huh? My breath caught at Alpha Jackson's words. Had he seen right through me? I racked my mind. Then I realized how I danced around Xavier's true identity, not telling the full truth about his ties to the Moonshadow Pack. Oh goddess, I was doomed. Before I could respond, Alpha Jackson's hand clamped around my arm, removing my grip from his shirt and pulling me to face him. Fury simmered in his steely gaze, not a trace of forgiveness. So every word out of your mouths, another lie? I couldn't look him in the eye, ashamed and terrified. I'm sorry. He frowned faintly. Sorry? Nervously, I wrung my hands together, picking at my own fingers. I thought if you knew Xavier was my mate and the heir, you'd just give me back to him. You'd think it useless to keep me and maybe find some other surrogate instead. He sighed, a sound more resigned than angry, and something changed in his eyes. His hand reached up, and I recoiled slightly, bracing myself for pain. Instead, his fingers threaded gently into my hair. He stroked it softly, like I was a child, yet the way he looked at me heated everything inside me. And why would I ever do something so foolish? He murmured. I stammered, lost for words. He was an alpha. Wouldn't he want what served him best? Wasn't it just logic? He leaned in, his hands still entwined in my hair. I've told you before, I don't care what the Moonshadow Pack wants. In one swift motion, he drew me tight against him, his lips barely touching my ear as he whispered, voice low and dangerous. I only care what you can do for me, Astrid. His breath sent a shudder through me, whether from him or the icy draft crackling in from shattered glass. It was impossible to tell. Then he pressed a kiss against the bare skin of my neck, and I melted against him, nerves and willpower dissolving. Are you cold? His palm cupped my waist, fingers drifting up and down, drawing flames across my skin. Want me to warm you up? He didn't wait for my answer, my skirts already sliding up under his touch, hands against my neck, cupping my breasts, squeezing my hips. I gasped his name, scarcely registering the sound of my own voice strung out in a half moan. Another heated kiss against my throat, his tongue flicking along my skin, tasting the salt left there by fear. I tangled my fingers into his hair, not remembering ever deciding to do so. Please, I whispered, not sure what I meant, but he seemed to know. Effortlessly, he lifted me, arms locked beneath me, and set me on the librarian's desk, untouched papers scattering beneath me. His palms drifted along my thighs, lifting my skirts higher, pulling me to the edge, aligning all of him against me, hard and eager and sending dangerous heat sparking through every nerve. I whimpered. His lips grazed the curve above my breast, his touch threatening to shatter my composure. When his eyes met mine, they were nearly black, his breathing ragged. It's your ovulation day, isn't it? Chapter 11, Being the Surrogate. Astrid's POV. Alpha Jackson's touch left me completely unraveled. All I wanted was for him to close the distance, to kiss me, to drown in his scent. His alone. He looked at me, waiting for an answer. That was right. He just asked something about my ovulation. Today. It was today, but why was he asking right now, in the middle of all this? Oh. Suddenly, the reality of what I was doing crashed over me and doused the pleasure. I wasn't here just for him. I was here to be his surrogate, to carry his child and get the money that would help me search for my father. A chill crept through me, and anxiety replaced my longing. I wished he hadn't reminded me. I found my voice, shaky but audible. Yes. A small, arrogant smile curved on Alpha Jackson's lips. Then he crushed his mouth to mine, his arousal pushing against me. I moaned, and he used the opportunity to deepen the kiss and slip his tongue into my mouth. He tasted me like someone parched and desperate for water, a hunger that undid me. I couldn't even think straight. I mimicked his movements and surrendered to his touch. When he finally pulled away, his gaze pinned me with open desire. I shivered, and his eyes grew even darker. He yanked my skirt up, completely exposing my underwear, then ripped them off without apology. I gasped in shock, jaw slack. Alpha Jackson. His voice turned rough, like thunder. You won't deny me, Astrid. There was no room for argument. He meant every single word. This is what I had agreed to, and I looked away, entirely yielding. Yes. Alpha Jackson kissed me again. One hand trailed up my thigh while the other tangled in my hair, pulling tightly and baring my neck, forcing me to arch towards him. His fingers pressed against my inner thigh as his lips moved over my neck, teeth and tongue tracing my skin. I gasped. That was when he entered me with just his finger. I froze at the suddenness and the unfamiliar stretch. He moved for only a moment before stopping. His eyes widened in surprise, and his voice was a low rumble. You're a virgin? I didn't know what to say. Did that change everything? Did I want it to? But I needn't have worried. If anything, the realization only seemed to intensify something in him. His kisses turned ravenous. Without warning, claws sliced into the neckline of my gown, nearing my breasts. I flushed with mortification until his mouth moved to my chest, sucking my nipple into his heap. A surge of pleasure stole the tension from my body. My fingers tangled harder in his hair, pulling him closer, and as he pressed another finger inside me, my head tipped back, hips thrusting to meet him involuntarily. The crest I'd been approaching was getting closer, an ache in my core that begged for relief. The sound spilling from my lips grew higher, near desperate, though I couldn't articulate what I wanted, just that I needed something. Abruptly, Alpha Jackson pulled away, leaving me hanging and frustrated. I groaned, panting and exposed, chest heaving in the still air, dress hiked, legs parted and slick on the polished surface of the librarian's desk. He watched me from a step back. I heard the rustle of his belt. The soft jingle of metal sent another shiver through me. The first thing I thought when I saw him unveiled was that he was impossibly large. My second thought, I wasn't sure I could take something like that. But I ached for him all the same, in a way that shocked me. He stepped closer. Close enough for me to see every vein, close enough to touch. Alpha Jackson gripped himself and slid his hand once, twice, before a drop of pearly liquid beaded at the tip. Without thinking, drawn by some instinct, I caught the droplet with my finger and, eyes locked on his, brought it to my mouth and sucked. His gaze turned feral. He lost the last of his restraint. He slammed me onto my back on the desk, spreading me wide before lowering over me. His entry was pain, real sharp pain that made me gasp aloud, the heat instantly dampened. Alpha Jackson didn't falter. He thrust forward again. My nails shredded lines down his back. I hadn't meant to make him bleed, but I felt his skin split beneath my fingertips. He kept moving inside me, relentless, and as much as I hated myself for agreeing to this at that moment, he shifted his hand between us and rubbed a place so powerfully sensitive that I jerked. Each thrust now came with that skillful touch, the pain melting, pleasure rushing in to take its place. Gradually, I adapted to him. My body learned and wanted. My climax crested suddenly and violently, and the world for a split moment vanished. When I came back to myself, Alpha Jackson was still powerfully hard, still deep within, and this time he thrust wild and fast, so that when we reached release again, our bodies shattered together. Alpha Jackson's POV. I hadn't meant for it to happen here, in the bloody library. But after I confronted her about her lies, I couldn't stomach catching Xavier's scent on her skin any longer. My wolf needed to overwrite his mark with mine. Now, holding Astrid limp from exhaustion, I wanted her just as fiercely as before. She was stunning, flushed and soft and drowsy with pleasure, her scent threaded tightly with my own. Sex with my other surrogates had always been just that, an obligation, cold and suffocating under the weight of necessity. This was nothing like duty. With Astrid, I couldn't see myself ever letting her go. She'd passed out from her first time. Instead of disturbing her, I gritted my teeth and simply dressed her as best I could, dragging down her torn gown, wrapping my jacket around her, and scooped her into my arms. Out in the hallway, I found Caleb and the rest of the guard detachment with Desire chained and held, suppressed and helpless. I smirked at the sight. "Glad to see you've got him," I said coolly. "You rat," Xavier spat, fury radiating from him, recognizing the lingering scent of my claim, probably even feeling Astrid's bond torn even further. "How dare you touch my mate?" I met Caleb's eyes and with a silent nod, gave the order. Caleb drew back and delivered a punishing blow. Xavier gasped roughly. The wind knocked from him. Were it not for Astrid, held against my chest and dead asleep, I would have taken out my anger myself. Caleb and the rest administered a proper beating before I gave the word to halt. I wasn't in the mood for overkill. Lock him up in the dungeons until I decide what to do with him. Yes, Alpha, Caleb bowed, his face hard. But as I was about to leave, uncertainty prickled. I paused. How did he know Astrid was here? Had she contacted him? Did she actually want to leave me for him? The suspicion rippled into cold fury. Caleb answered quickly. The slave traders sold the information, made a deal with him. Relief prickled. At least Astrid had nothing to do with it. But those bastards had dared cross me. I spoke with finality. Find the slave traders. Kill them. All of them. My eyes fell on the battered form of Xavier. He wouldn't have gotten this far into my lands without inside help. There's a traitor. I could feel my skin prickle. Loyalty demanded punishment. Find whoever betrayed us. Bring me their heads. Understood, Alpha, Caleb said grimly. Astrid stirred in my arms. She'd be waking soon. I needed to get her into my quarters before that. I strode forward, purpose in each step, pressing the heel of my boot into Xavier's chest as I passed. And as for you, maybe you'll finally understand your place now? He thrashed against me, defeated and seething. I hated cowards like him, those who talked of loyalty but acted only for themselves. You're nobody, I said coldly. When you rejected her, you forfeited any claim. Astrid is mine now, absolutely and entirely. Chapter 12. The Morning After. Astrid's POV. As I stirred in bed, my body ached from exhaustion, a pleasant, haunting ache that lingered beneath my skin. I sank deeper into the softness of the sheets, reluctant to let go of the warmth nestled so perfectly around me. As my eyelids finally fluttered open, I caught sight of Alpha Jackson. He was lying beside me, gloriously shirtless, and from the shape beneath the sheets, clearly bare beneath as well. A surprised yelp escaped me. My hand shot to my mouth just as it dawned on me that I, too, was completely naked. Then the memory surged. I had lost my virginity to him last night. Clutching the sheets to my chest, I quietly turned to him. This was my first time seeing Alpha Jackson asleep, and I found myself captivated by how peaceful, almost gentle, he looked. With his features softened in sleep, stripped of his usual arrogance and sternness, he seemed almost innocent. The word felt ridiculous, even in my own head. His eyes were closed, long, dark lashes casting subtle shadows over his chiseled cheekbones. His hair, messy from sleep, had tumbled over his brow, and his mouth, his cruel, relentless mouth, rested in a soft, almost childlike pout. Who would have thought Alpha Jackson, the most ruthless leader I'd ever met, pouted in his sleep? For a wild moment, I found it utterly charming. Of course, last night he'd looked nothing like this. Last night he was all hunger and want, every angle tense with a burning desire. The memories hit me hard, his hands on my skin, my desperate cries, the pleasure-barbed screams that had left me undone and trembling in his arms. Had I really been that woman? Had I really yielded so freely, given in to him, craving his touch, savoring every dizzying wave of rapture he'd drawn from me? Before my mind convinced me this was all a fever dream, I reached out tentatively. Was it to convince myself he was real? To remember the heat of his skin, or simply because, in this tender morning light, he was heartbreakingly beautiful? My hand had barely hovered inches from his face when, swift as a predator, he caught my wrist midair. I sucked in a quick breath, startled. Alpha Jackson, you're awake. The words slipped out, trembling, barely more than a whisper. Those cool steel gray eyes regarded me, unreadable, glinting with something I still couldn't decipher. Even after last night, even after I'd given him everything, he remained a mystery. I tried to pull my hand away, but his grip only tightened, unyielding. In one impossibly smooth motion, he shifted, rolling over me, suddenly pinning me down, arms sunk deep in the mattress above my head. My breath caught, face flushing under his scrutiny. His hips hovered above mine through the tumultuous tangle of sheets, my breasts exposed, pressed up by my arms being drawn tight over my head. His name escaped me like a plea. Alpha Jackson. My voice held a question I didn't dare speak out loud, not yet. He smiled, and the heat of his gaze made warmth rush between my thighs. I was already melting. You look beautiful like this, he rumbled, his grasp possessive. Naked. Stunning. His face dipped, his mouth brushing my neck, heat and teeth grazing my skin. My chest tightened. I was desperate for him, every nerve wound taut, my hips betraying me as they shifted eagerly beneath him. Alpha Jackson. The need in my voice was humiliating, but I couldn't help it. Without warning, he pulled back and caught my lower lip between his teeth, biting sharply until the metallic rush of blood hit my tongue. He licked the smear away, a wicked glint in his eyes. His voice curled around me. Did you ever call someone's name like that? My mind went blank. Who? I croaked, vision narrowing to nothing but his face. He paused, tilting his head. Your mate. It felt like ice water. Everything inside me went cold. Why mention Savior? Did he regret last night? Was this the moment he sent me crawling back to a man who didn't care about me at all? He's not my mate anymore, I said, each word weighty, sharp with conviction. It ended when he rejected me. Alpha Jackson studied me, unsatisfied, pressing on. He doesn't seem to know it. How could I possibly explain? Xavier had always cared more about the throne than about the person he'd been bound to. Now, he was just here to use me all over again. Holding Alpha Jackson's gaze, I spoke plainly. I don't care if he knows it or not. There was silence, thicker than before. He released one of my wrists, though his other hand anchored me in place. With gentle insistence, he let a finger trace along my jawline, making me shiver. If I hadn't come, would you have left with him? His voice was quieter, but there was an edge, a darkness, beyond curiosity. The question stung. Had I even considered it? If I'd yielded to Xavier, I'd still be living my old nightmare, naive, untouched, and forever manipulated. Never again. I locked eyes with him, honest. No, I wouldn't have left with him. A slow, satisfied smile teased the corners of his lips. Are you sure? I know you want to leave this place, he teased, dark amusement sparking in his expression. I held his gaze, voice steady. No, I don't. He chuckled, almost pitying. Are you saying, with all that time alone in the library, you never once thought of escaping? His words stung, dredging up guilt. I remembered standing by the library window, worlds away, and aching to run. I couldn't meet his eyes. He snapped his fingers beside my ear, a sharp jerk back to the present. Don't lie to me, Astrid. I dropped my gaze, admitting softly, it did cross my mind. But I didn't run, and I wouldn't have done it. Not anymore. He stayed quiet, so I chanced to glance at him, the thinnest resolve holding heartbreak at bay. My life is here now, with you. You promised to keep me safe. Your beta also promised me $50,000, and I don't plan on going anywhere until I have it. For a moment, I wasn't sure he even heard me. Then, his laughter burst free, low, derisive, unexpectedly exhilarating. He kissed me, slow and dangerous, amusement alive in his eyes. You'd sell yourself to me for money. Shame washed through me, but I refused to let it show. He was right. My body came with a price, whether or not I chose it at first. I shrugged, keeping my voice casual. You've already paid. I'm just securing my own interests, just as you do. This was the truth between us. He wanted an heir and nothing more. I had made my peace with it. Alpha Jackson smirked. I appreciate your tenacity. He whispered close to my ear, lips grazing my skin. But I think I appreciate your scent and your body even more. There was no time to argue. In a swift motion, he stripped the covers away, laying me bare. His greedy hands roamed over me, scorching and rough, his interest fierce and unyielding. Pain streaked through the pleasure, and I swallowed my moan, trembling beneath his grip. He held both my wrists tight with one hand, and with the other expertly teased me until I was gasping, writhing, powerless beneath him. Every touch tangled delight with ache until I climaxed loudly. My limbs slackened, overflowing with want, with need, until I didn't recognize myself anymore. Alpha Jackson entered me, full and unrestrained, releasing my hands as I clung to him, winding my fingers through his hair, drinking in his fire and his intoxicating scent. I could imagine ever growing tired of him. I hoped desperately I never would. Alpha Jackson's POV. Watching her fall asleep for the second time in a day was surprising. completely new, if I was honest. Usually, my surrogates drifted off the moment I was finished. I never lingered. I certainly never carried them or lay beside them, watching the rhythmic flutter of lashes on cheeks. That would cross a line, become something different, something softer. This was different. I should wake her, tell her to go back to her room, but she just looked so peaceful. I couldn't muster the energy to send her away. Before I could second guess it, not out of affection, just practicality, I told myself, I let myself rest beside her. For the first time ever, I slept next to a woman brought here as a surrogate. Shameful almost. When I woke, everything was black. My eyes opened, but the world stayed dark. Panic prickled at the back of my neck. A rising dread I feverishly tamped down. The blindness was getting worse. Careful not to rouse Astrid, I slid out of bed as soundlessly as I could. The last thing I needed was her catching me like this, weak, vulnerable, lost in a world with no light. Relying on my sharpened senses, I fumbled through the room until I found my dresser. My hands located something vaguely resembling clean clothes, which I pulled on blindly before slipping out the door. A guard clearing his throat caught my attention. It was not Caleb. I reached out through the pack link, voice steady despite the emptiness stretching in front of me. Come to my office at once. Chapter 13, Being Jealous. Alpha Jackson's POV. You sent for me, Alpha? Caleb entered my office. I didn't look up. My mind was still stuck in that place of absolute helplessness. It's getting worse, I said finally. I noticed Caleb stiffen in the corner of my vision. He was almost as rattled by this as I was. Alpha? I glanced up at him. I woke up today completely blind. Even now, my sight hasn't come back entirely. I couldn't even use the computer. It was humiliating. Being the alpha should mean strength. Every passing day just brought my death closer, and this was a fight I couldn't win no matter how hard I trained, no matter how fiercely I resisted. My own body was betraying me, ceaselessly. The witch who'd cast the curse was long dead, and her bloodline had faded to nothing. There would be no chance of forgiveness, no hope for reversal. Astrid remained my last hope, but deep down, I knew my fate wasn't going to change. 2 years, that's all I had left, maybe less. Caleb still stood rooted, hesitant. The drugs, the doctor. With a sudden surge of frustration, I swept everything off the top of my desk. Several items crashed to the ground in pieces as a strangled growl escaped me. The drugs aren't working, Caleb. Nothing is. When the blindness had begun, those blasted prescription pills managed to slow it, but I was a fool to believe I'd found a cure. I should have known better. I met Caleb's gaze, forcing the words out. I'm running out of time. He was at my side in an instant, keeping a respectful distance, but his concern was real. Don't talk like that, Alpha. You're the backbone of Crimson Moon. Without you, there's nothing left for us. It nearly made me laugh. This pack would probably die out with my bloodline, all because of a curse I never deserved. I clenched my fists, frustration boiling up again. Every attempt to fight this curse has led nowhere, I muttered. I just keep getting weaker. Self-disgust burned in every word. A true alpha wasn't supposed to let himself be taken down by something like this. My mind raced with how disastrous things could become if anyone saw this side of me in public. If the other alphas find out, I whispered. They'll circle like wolves scenting injured prey. But Caleb still managed to look steady. We've kept it secret. We will again. Optimistic bastard. He's not the one losing his eyesight inch by inch. This was the longest I've been blind, I said, voice strained. What if it happens again at some meeting? They'll know, and they'll tear us apart. I saw a flicker of real concern in Caleb's expression. He cleared his throat. I doubt it'll come to that, but for now, why don't you stay indoors just for a bit? My head jerked up. For a moment, my anger flared. I'm the alpha. I can't just hide because of this. Caleb dipped his head quickly, hearing the edge in my tone. I'd never presumed to tell you what to do, he said quietly. Just maybe check in with the doctors, see what they can recommend if this happens again. I paused, considering. Maybe he was right. I couldn't hide forever, but risking everything out of pride was reckless. If the right medicine could even buy me a little time, it would help. But too much secrecy would only make the pack look weak. If I disappear for too long, I said, the rumors will start. He shook his head. Just say it's a week. The others will assume you're entertaining the new addition to your harem. He always did have a shrewd mind. I'd never settled down, preferring surrogates over mates, and played the role of the youthful alpha collecting pretty women. Taking a week off was hardly out of character. Send Astrid's clothes up to my room, I said. Caleb nodded. Of course, Alpha. Also, Alpha Finn has sent a request. My eyebrows shot up. Really? That soon? So he knew his son was here already. Missed his check-in, I suppose. So much arrogance from both of them, sneaking the boy in, trying to whisk Astrid away, refusing to play by the rules between us. Now Finn wanted to negotiate. What's he asking for? Caleb shrugged. He says he'll pay anything, as long as his son comes back safely. A bitter laugh escaped me. Finn had nothing that interested me, certainly not enough for his wretched heir. I'm not in a generous mood. Keep Xavier locked up until I decide what to do. Yes, Alpha. Given my frame of mind, Xavier would stay in that cell for as long as I pleased. He'd walked in on his own, but leaving? That was up to me. The thought jogged something else in my mind. Have you found the slave traders yet? Caleb's face darkened. Still searching, Alpha. I'll bring you their heads soon, I swear. I waved that off. I knew it had only been hours. Slave traders scattered the moment they sensed the tide turn. They'd be running, desperate. But he would get them for me. He always delivered. All right. You may go. Caleb bowed and turned away, but I stopped him with a word. Wait. He looked back and I found myself hesitating. Damn, it was actually embarrassing to voice it. Make sure Xavier and Astrid never cross paths. I remembered that look Xavier gave her, still attached, still daft for her, trying to run away together. Their old mate bond is still too strong. I don't like that. If it were purely up to me, I'd kill Xavier and be done with it. But murdering the Moonshadow heir would invite trouble, too much prying, and the curse would get out. Most of all, I wasn't certain what Astrid would do if I hurt her mate right in front of her. A sound drew my attention. I looked up to find Caleb's lips twitching, barely holding back a smile. I shot him a glare. You're laughing? His face remained all professionalism, but that unspoken amusement lingered. No, Alpha. I slammed my fist down, putting a crack in the thick wood. Care to share what's so amusing? He straightened, finally letting a bit of his humor show. It's just, that's the first time I've seen you act this way. Jealous. A snarl ripped from my throat as I bared my teeth. Drop it. You're wrong. Try me again and you're testing my patience. Caleb left, and I had the disturbing suspicion he was still grinning behind his bow. When the silence settled, I sat staring after him, haunted by his words. Could it actually be true? Was I jealous? Chapter 14. A Stolen Week. Astrid's POV. I could hardly admit it to myself, but this past week, hidden away here, had been one of the best of my life. Maybe it was because at that time I was in bed with Alpha Jackson. I didn't know if sex was always this incredible or if my inexperience made it feel so intoxicating. I'd never been with anybody else, never even touched like this by anyone but him. Sometimes I wondered if I was just starved for affection, for someone who made me feel wanted, and that's why it felt so wonderful. Or maybe it was because, for once, I wasn't alone. Most days, I tried not to overthink it. I let myself relax. I let myself be happy. Waking up next to Alpha Jackson became its own little addiction. The warmth of his body, his kisses, and that regular, urgent tumble under the covers that left us both reeling. If we weren't supernaturals who healed quickly, we'd probably both be in the hospital by now. Even though I healed more slowly and was new to it all, slowing down was the last thing on my mind. Sometimes I was the one eager for more. I quickly realized that Alpha Jackson wasn't much for small talk or sharing details about himself. He loved to tease and play, to challenge me with a half smile or a taunting remark. But when it came to real conversation, he was all walls and shadows. I barely knew the man I was sharing a bed with. The only time I saw another side of him was in the library. As tempting as it was to spend every moment in bed, I couldn't let go of my task, digging into the stacks, piecing together my folly story through any book that might mention the Alpha King. Alpha Jackson let me go, but after Xavier managed to sneak onto his property, he assigned me a guard. Now, someone followed me straight into the library, and I had to be back in our room before my strict curfew. It was strange, having someone always hovering nearby, but I understood why he did it. I didn't dare ask what he did to Xavier, though I was burning with curiosity. The last thing I wanted was for Jackson to think I still cared about my ex-mate. You love books that much? I looked up, startled by his voice. Somehow I hadn't noticed the guard leave or Jackson enter. That book had completely absorbed me. Alpha Jackson, I started, only for him to tug me out of my chair and into his arms. He grinned slyly, but his voice was playful. You missed your bedtime, and I missed my surrogate. Warmth bloomed in my chest as he kissed me, hard, thorough, devouring until I was dizzy for him. My hands slid around his neck. I could already feel his desire pressed against me. Just when I thought we'd tip over the edge, Jackson stopped. He lingered, wide palm on my lips, those eyes fixed on me. I waited, half expecting him to slip his fingers into my mouth like the shameless brute he usually was. But he simply let his hand fall and turned to the stack of books on the table. I'm dying to see what you've been reading, he mused, grinning almost mischievously. Panic flickered inside me. How was I supposed to explain only pulling books about the Alpha King? What if he put it together? Trying to recover, I followed him and forced a smile. Why? He paused above the books, dark eyes catching mine. Because I want you to read them with me. I don't like when anything else takes your time. A flush spread over my skin, common sense dissolving for a heartbeat. But then Jackson inched closer to my books, and I jolted back to reality. I shifted in his path, palm pressed to his chest as I let my voice drop to a soft, flirtatious tone. Maybe you should pick something out for us to read, I said, hoping I could distract him. I'm curious about what you like. His eyes darkened, and a deep growl rumbled up from his chest, thrilling me. What I like, Astrid, is you in my bed, warm, ready for me. I like those little noises you make every time I touch you. He gripped my hips, pulling me tight to his body so every inch of his arousal pressed into me. Alpha Jackson, I whispered, trembling with want. If he just shift his hips, hit that angle. He let go, moving away completely. He was grinning now, playing with me, while I stood there shivering, breath heavy with frustration. He eyed the bookshelves, lips twitching. You want to see what I like? Let's start with politics. Blushing furiously, I trailed after him as he picked out a stack. We brought the books back to the room where I started reading to him aloud, sometimes in the middle of the night. It was unpredictable, kind of fun. For once, he seemed fascinated by something other than sex or violence. I'd finally seen a glimmer of his mind apart from the harsh exterior. And he wasn't always stoic and serious. Sometimes he had these rare, goofy moments. There was one evening, sitting together while I arranged the books for our session, that he suddenly dropped a new novel into my lap. Read that. I stared at the title, surprised. He'd actually taken a trip to the library on his own. He was watching me with a sly, expectant smile, which made me glance down again. I blanched. It was a sex manual. I can't read this, I protested. Settling in front of me, his legs crossed, he watched with deep amusement. Read it. That's a command. By the time I'd finished just the first chapter, with its explicit details and pictures, and Jackson's smoldering gaze, never leaving me, I was barely holding it together. My skin pulsed, my panties grew damp, my breath came quick and shallow. Would you want me to have you like that? Jackson's voice dropped, and we didn't need words anymore. I let the book slide from my lap. He pushed me onto the bed. And when he claimed me, it was so absolute, I almost forgot everything but him. Afterwards, Jackson wrapped both arms around me, showering my bare skin with impossible, playful kisses. I realized, uneasily, how easy it was becoming to need his touch, to crave his company. That, more than anything, scared me enough to say aloud, "It's been a week." He nipped my earlobe, voice low against my skin. And a shiver ran through me. My ovulation time is over. His hand drifted lower, his touch cool and slow. And I drew a shaky breath and forced myself to say it. You probably have the other surrogates to get to. The thought stung, but it lingered between us. Alpha Jackson rolled over me, capturing my gaze, voice gruff. I'm the alpha here, not you. I decide when you leave, and I don't want you gone just yet. It sounded arrogant, but in his eyes was a flicker of uncertainty. He kissed me, hungry and hard. Underneath his boldness, I could feel something reckless and uneasy in him, matching the same uncertainty rising inside me. Kiara's POV. I met Alpha Jackson the day he picked me as his surrogate. One look at those gray eyes, and I was gone. Of course, I agreed. Time with him was divine, but always so cold. He never cuddled me, never talked unless I swooped in first. Even then, he made it quick, leaving no room for softness. Our times together were still the brightest moments of my life. I dreamed that if I could give him an heir, he'd finally let his guard down. Maybe, just maybe, look at me with something more in those cold eyes. But I failed. And then there were more surrogates. Week after week, my turns dwindled away. My only hope was to get pregnant, for that was the one thing certain to earn his attention. I clung to hope and forced myself not to listen to the rumors. They said a new girl had usurped my place. Gossip ran wild, insisting Alpha Jackson never let a surrogate spend her whole ovulation week in his room. It had to be lies. I was convinced the others were jealous, desperate to stir me up. But now my week arrived again, and I prepared carefully. I waxed, bathed in silky scented oils, tried on half a dozen dresses before settling on the prettiest one. My hair and makeup were polished to perfection. I stood outside Alpha Jackson's door, about to knock, when I heard laughter. His deep, unguarded laughter. Not once in all my time had I heard Jackson laugh like that. I froze. Maybe the rumors were true. My heart twisted as I raised my fist and knocked. A pause, then that deep, sure voice. Come in. When I entered, I bowed politely. Good day, Alpha. He ignored me, his attention caught by her, Astrid. He didn't look away, simply spoke, Continue reading, Astrid. I glanced up, searching for the thief who'd taken the only man I loved. She was so plain, maddeningly innocent, long brown hair, curvy body. She looked so young and helpless. But I knew she was dangerous. She finished the passage, unfazed by my presence, then stood and hurried out. I need to return this to the library. The door closed behind her, but Jackson's gaze lingered on the empty entrance. My heart crumbled just watching his eyes. He finally turned to me. Why are you here? I fought to keep my voice steady. Tears burned. It's my week. He barely seemed present, growing cold right before me. He didn't kiss me, didn't meet my eyes. He just did what needed doing, quick, businesslike, not letting me touch him, then finished and moved on, as if I already belonged to the past. I got dressed and left, feeling more used than ever. For the first time, there was no comfort to cling to, no hope in my heart. This was her fault, Astrid's, and I vowed that somehow I would get rid of her. Chapter 15 Rogues and Sisters. Alpha Jackson's POV. After Kiara left, exhaustion pressed down on me, not from the sex itself, but from who it was with. I was so damn tired of empty encounters, of using women for one desperate reason, to break the curse and maybe, just maybe, preserve my worthless life. I was sick to death of meaningless relationships, and it was Astrid's fault. Time with her is a habit I can't or won't break. Her innocence wipes away some of my own rot. Seeing her so dazzled by other people's lives, so endlessly curious, watching her lose herself in whatever book she'd found, it was fast becoming my favorite part of the day. Sometimes I barely heard what she said. My mind wandered instead to the curve of her smile, the contagious light in her eyes, the wonder that shone in her gaze every time she looked at me like I'd hung up the moon. And I admit it, I craved more. No, I needed more. Needed her. Kiara's knock yanked me straight out of that daydream. I stared at Astrid, just to see what her face would betray with another woman barging in on us. But she barely acknowledged it, slowly excused herself without my say-so. That small, indifferent exit just made me angrier. She didn't look back. She practically skipped away, like she couldn't wait to be rid of me. I kept that frustration pressed down hard inside me with Kiara, letting it stew until by the end I felt nothing but chilled emptiness. I glanced at the small tower of books in the corner. Astrid's books. She'd be in the library now, content among her newer friends, the words on pages. She'd never miss me, even as I was going crazy missing her. She had a mate after all. It's far too early for anything real between us, at least, so why was my chest on fire like this? I stood. I would just go to the library and bring her back. She had no right to be content when I was anything except. The door swung open, and suddenly Kaylin stood before me as if summoned out of the air. Caleb. Good. Go find Astrid and bring her to me immediately, I ordered. But Caleb didn't budge. I looked him over and for once really saw the panic simmering in his gaze. Alpha, I've come with important news. Instinct slammed down on me. What happened? The rogues have attacked. A low growl shook me. Rage rolled in, forgotten until I tasted its burn. Rogues. Vile bastards, scraps of the wolf world, thinking they'd dare touch my people? They'd see just how ferocious I could be, and their blood would douse this mess of feelings Astrid left dragging behind. Gather every able hand, I said through clenched teeth, facing my beta. Let's show the rogues what it means to attack our pack. Caleb bowed deeply. Yes, Alpha. I'd deal with Astrid when I returned. Kiara's POV. I'd never cried this hard. The tears wouldn't stop. My chest hurt like I'd swallowed iron. Alpha Jackson would never love me. Never look at me, not the way I gazed at him anyway. That hope was nothing more than a painful dream. My bedroom door flew open and Freya swept in, her red hair flowing like some implacable flag, fringe hugging her delicate features. Kiara, what happened? Why are you crying? Freya's voice sounded worried and sharp. I tried to answer, but the sound broke down into hot, shaking sobs. Freya rushed to fold me up in her arms, holding tight and rubbing soothing circles on my back. Finally, with a heave, I blurted out the pain that kept pounding inside my head. He loves her. Freya leaned back and scrutinized my face, clear confusion in her frown. Who loves who, Claire? Frustration seethed inside me. Did everyone around here have hay for brains? Alpha Jackson loves that newcomer, that harlot who just waltzed in. I choked out. Freya's brows knit further, skeptical. Alpha Jackson doesn't love anyone, Kiara. He only wants his heir. A part of me wanted desperately to believe her. That had always been his only concern, an heir. But how do you explain the way he acts around her? No pregnancy to keep her here, no hold beside the way he watches her, all focused laughter and gentle attention. What unholy nonsense is that? Desperate, I held Freya's eyes. Freya, I know what I saw. He's not the same, not with her. Freya sighed. All right. Even if it's true, even if he's fallen, he's not worth all of this, the crying, Kiara. She brushed my tears away with a rough affection. We are surrogates. That doesn't change. We give him a child and walk away with our payments. Like it was all so simple. Just spit out a pop, cash in for a new life. But that was Freya, always the practical one. Real. Not given to dramatics. She kept me upright all those nights I would have drowned in my own longing. When I first came here, selected to be his surrogate, she'd been happy for me. When I sobbed into her shoulder, she joined too, braved it all just to watch over her wreck of a sister. Some would say it was strange sharing a man with your own flesh and blood, but that was our reality. If Freg felt anything, envy, regret, she never showed it. All she seemed to care about was the payday and where it could lead us. I tried to sound braver than I felt, facing her now. Freya, I don't care about the money. I really don't. I love Alpha Jackson. I wish he could see me the way he sees Astrid. Freya gave me a look so heavy with pity its weight nearly pushed me out of her arms. Kiara, you have to let this go. Can't you try to forget? How could I do that? I'd have to forget how to breathe. I can't, I snapped, the emotion shivering beneath my words. I pictured Astrid wrapped up in Alpha's attention, refused to let him slip away so easily. If I can't have his love, I'll end myself. Kiara, Freya practically shrieked, her hazel eyes matching my own as they went wide, frightened. I just shook my head. I can't live without him, Freya. I don't want to. Desperation cracked in the way she gripped me tighter, like she could anchor me to this world through pure willpower. Don't say things like that, Kiara, please. I'm not joking. I leaned closer, pleading with my eyes, with everything left in me. Then help me. We get rid of her. He'll look at me again. He never noticed me before, not really, but now I could see a chance. I'd do anything to take her place. Freya went quiet, distant, considering. Then, a cunning look flickered across her face as she straightened to meet my gaze. If Alpha Jackson has a child, a real living child, then he won't need Astrid or any of the rest of us. He'll let her go. It was a brilliant plan on paper, except for the whole matter of actually getting pregnant. We'd been trying for years. Trials, medicine, interventions, nothing. But we tried everything, I reminded her bitterly. Not even IVF worked, not for me. Freya's confidence didn't shift. The realization hit me like a slap. I stared at her in disbelief. No, you don't mean... She pressed her index finger firmly to my lips, silencing me. I do. My throat went dry. This plan was damn near as dangerous as hunting Astrid down ourselves. If Alpha Jackson finds out, he'll end you, Freya. She just shook her head, calm as anything, flashing that old, reassuring smile. He won't. I'll make sure of it. Freya cradled me against her once more, soft and sincere. Thank you, I whispered, letting relief slip quietly into the air as she stroked my back. This plan would work. It had to.